Hello, I think that I was muted all the time.
Sí, sí, te estábamos saludando.
Sí. Can we switch to English? So
I can try, but it's not gonna be that easy to explain the connector and then the marketplace migration.
come on, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try. So
You
basically,
will improve over time. No worries.
okay, so basically we have two main components when creating a Aragon app connector. The connector itself, which is located on the main source folder, and then the subgraph that is located on the same main folder. So the first thing that we need to do, obviously, is creating the subgraph, and then we can create the connector that will communicate with that subgraph.
I have a question. The subgraph, you don't know if it can be deployed locally?
As far as I know, it can be deployed locally. When I debug the subgraph, I always deploy it to Rinkeby, which doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, deploy it to the graph node on Rinkeby. And I always debug it that way. But I'm not sure that it could be deployed locally. At least with the commands that you can find on the aragon-connect project, you cannot do it.
Okay.
But on the official documentation, you can deploy. You need to set up a graph node, and then you need to set up the subgraph locally, and then you can connect both. But it could be a bit tricky because Aragon Connect sets up like default Aragon app configuration for the subgraph. So I think you need to do that manually, which could be a bit difficult. So I think it's best to debug using deploying to the Rinkeby network.
Okay, that has sense. Actually, we already have the contracts working on Xtype. You can try to do is to get the subgraph from them. The DAO, I can share with you which is the address of the DAO. You can go from there to see which are the applications. I guess that we can deploy a subgraph for all the applications of a specific type, right?
Say it again.
We have the marketplace application.
Yes.
Deployed in Rinkeby and also in Xtype.
Yes.
So that step is already done.
Yeah, but those are the Aragon apps. We still need to deploy the subgraph.
Okay.
So if we already have the apps on the Xtype network, we can deploy directly the subgraph there. As you can see this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There is a command to do it. So I think it's not that different from deploying to the Rinkeby network. So, okay. We start with the subgraph development. Basically, this folder here, you can find the APIs folder where you store all the contract specification for your subgraph.
I can tell you something about it that I saw in the Aragon workshop that was Facu explaining. He said that those APIs like we have to import them but not copy and paste because I don't remember why, but he was really recommending. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it's because for reducing the probability to make mistakes, you know, because when you update your contract, you need to update your APIs again, so copy pasting is prone error.
I'm not exactly sure if that was the reason. I will rewatch the video, but I think he said something about the dependencies.
We can do this automate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he did do it, but we can set it up that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got our APIs, and these two folders are generated when deploying the subgraph, so we don't have to worry about it. Now we have the manifest folder. Here we have all the network configuration data. Basically, we say here what contracts, or in this case organizations, we are going to be listening, and from which starting block. This is important because, well, we don't want to scan all the blocks back to the initial.
Why are we setting up specific organizations and not all the organizations that use a specific app?
This is for organizations that are already deployed, but when we go to the Subgraph template, I'm going to explain how to do it with the templates that are dynamic data sources, basically. So you can tell the Subgraph that a new data source has been created when you create a new organization. But I'm going to explain it later. This is one way to basically say which data sources you want to listen if you already deploy it for every network. This is aragon-connect template code, and then the xtype.
Okay.
So here, okay, maybe we can explain this later. Here are, we talk about this later. Okay, we have the scripts, so that are gonna build and deploy our subgraph. Basically, these are the scripts that we're calling when executing this command. And then we have the source folder. Here, basically, we have the three important components of the subgraph: the GraphQL schema, the subgraph template jam, that is the general configuration file for our subgraph, and the handlers for our events. So basically, our subgraph will be listening to certain events,
yeah,
and then we can tell it which handlers we want to execute based on that event. All that information we set it up on the subgraph template jam, which is this. So as you can see here, you tell it which GraphQL schema we want to use. The GraphQL schema is the the data structure we want to map our information. So when an event is received in the subgraph, we map it to a GraphQL entity, and then we can query that GraphQL scheme using the GraphQL endpoint.
Anga, could you mute yourself? Yeah, there is some echo.
Me? Yeah. I wanted to ask, because I've heard that were entities so many times. What is a GraphQL entity?
So I like to think of an entity like a table on a relational database model, you know. So, for example, the scheme for this application that is very simple consists of 4 entities. Well, and this, but these 4 entities. So it's like a table on a relational model.
Yeah.
You have your table and your columns. For example, we have a task entity that has an ID and date status. Basically, we are this has to resemble the data state, the app state on the contract, the structure, you know. But basically, it's like a table. It's the specification we're gonna to use. So when the client makes requests, follows certain structure when doing the queries. But yeah, so the template here, we specify where is our schema located, and then we have this field called data sources that basically are contracts. In this case, is Aragon contracts that Aragon-connect uses. So they use this thing that is called mustache to import another jams, because these jams that are imported here, you can find it on the templates section that we saw earlier. And here you can see, sorry.
Yeah, can you show how they look like?
Yeah, for example, the first jam they import is the organization jam that imports the kernel template, organization factories. Where is it?
You have it inside contracts kernel.
Oh yeah, sorry. Where is it? Sorry.
Inside the templates contracts template.kernel.yam. The other one, just one.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't see it. Yeah, for example, the kernel template. As you can see, it's another jam that specifies, in this case, Aragon contracts from the framework like the factory, the kit, the template that Aragon uses to keep track of their own events. So this is the way that you can configure the subgraph to listen when a new organization is deployed, or when your app is installed on a DAO. So you can create new listeners for those events, for that new contract. So as you can see, these mustaches import another YAM files and configure variables. So basically here, aragon-connect behind this gonna replace this variable with a value and build the YAM file, and this is what the graph is going to deploy when your subgraph is created. But we don't have to worry about all these files. They are already configured. So, okay, so we got our data sources, or our default Aragon data sources, and then we have the template section that is the same that data sources, but with the difference that these are dynamically created. These data sources doesn't exist yet. In our case, for this app, it's called Round Robin. We specify to the subgraph that, hey, when a new instance of this app is created, use this configuration. That's the difference. I don't know if I explained it correctly, but
Yeah, very perfect, I think. I don't know, but I think you explained well.
I mean, the only difference between these two fields is that, for example, this jam is gonna be a lot similar to this one, but we'll have an address field too, because there is already a contract deployed for that contract. In this case, these are contracts from the Aragon OS framework that are already deployed. So that's one of the differences, because we don't know beforehand the address of the contract where our app is going to be deployed. So that's why we put it on the template section instead of the data sources. So, okay.
I have a question. When you want to update an application, is it based on the Aragon PM, or you have to add the new address of the new contract, of the new implementation?
It's the same. You don't have to update this jam file when you update your Aragon app.
Okay, and where do you configure, for example, that round robin app is a specific ENS or APM package?
I'm going to explain it right now.
Okay.
Let me finish to explain these subfields, and then we can go. What?
I say it was too fast.
Okay, let me slow down. So everything good until this point, or anyone has any doubt?
Yeah, very clear so far.
Okay. So
Well, actually, what you are mapping here, because you told us that it is created based on the new applications, but I think that what you are mapping is quite interesting too. For example, the entities that you are mapping with config, task, user, blah blah, those are entities that you are defining in your model, and they will be available in the Graphql, right?
yes. So basically, this jam file, as we stated before, reads the schema GraphQL, so the subgraph knows if these entities are correct or not. So we basically telling it here that we're gonna use all these entities from this file, and then well, we state here the ABI of our contract, and then we tell it which event from this contract we're gonna be listening. So for the task created event, for example, we're gonna execute the handle task created. That handle is basically a function that receives the event and then creates or updates the GraphQL entity that is gonna be available through an endpoint. So here basically we're telling the subgraph which are the events and which are the event handlers functions. And then we tell the subgraph where are these event handlers located. In this case, it's located on the round robin app TypeScript file that we're gonna see in a moment. So basically, that's all.
Do you know, because as far as I know, the events are like something that makes it very easy to read from the outside of the blockchain.
Yes.
So, but were the events created before the graph protocol, or like what? This is not necessarily related to this project, but I was wondering, what else are the events used for? Do you know?
So can you repeat? I didn't quite understand it. I can't hear you very well.
Okay. Can you hear okay now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, it's my connection, I think. I was asking if the events like the graph protocol is maybe like 2 years old, I think. Do you know if the
Yes.
events are from the beginning of Solidity, or they were made for the GraphQL protocol? I think they are used for something else too, or not?
The events are beginning of Solidity. I would say of the Ethereum. I think they're already defined on the specification of Ethereum, not when the graph was created. So basically, it's a cheap way to query and consult the blockchain.
Okay. Okay, I don't know what else. This is the first time I see the events used for something, so I don't know.
Well, on the Aragon apps, I mean the main communication way is through events. You know, all the Aragon apps relay on the events.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, that was just a bit off topic, but
Yeah. Okay, so basically, this is all that we need to specify here. So the subgraph can start working. So now we need to write the code for all these files and functions. With the schema that we saw earlier. So basically, the graph uses the GraphQL types, but includes
As a library, it doesn't have events and anything like that. Then the market maker, which is the application that actually does the conversions, and that has events. We have the marketplace controller that it has the interface, and also we have the pre-sale that now it is going to be called Hatch. That is the other contract. Maybe we can even simplify more. I'm not.
I know. I was talking about the specifically for the marketplace controller, because there are, for example, the bounded token that the controller keeps tracks on, or the contribution token, or the pre-sale token. So there are various different contracts that we need to have information about. So we need to specify all that on the schema.
Hopefully we only have to do two schemas. One for the hats to know who is contributing and how much, and another one for the market maker.
Okay.
They are pretty separated things.
So the hatch will be the pre-sale app, basically.
Yeah. Yes.
So, yeah.
The thing is, the logic is people who if the state is open, people can contribute. We keep track of all the contributions, and the state can change to goal reached or refunding. If the state changes to refunding, it is because we didn't got the amount of money that we were expecting, so we are refunding to people, and this means that we also have to keep track on who is getting refunded. But it's very simple. It's like a number that is growing and then a number that is falling down, if that's the case.
So I'm having a bit of doubts. So because we're gonna like use a simplified version of the marketplace app, then we write a connector for that and not the marketplace app in general.
It's simplified, but because it's a different version. The original version was batched and had more transactions, and now we are just using one transaction per order. But the rest is more or less the same.
Okay. Yeah, we need to define the schema. We need to think about the schema really, really well. It's one of the most important. I think it's the most important thing about the subgraph. So okay.
If you want, you can begin with the pre-sale, which looks easier. I don't know, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But you have the contracts with the events in Exile, so maybe you can actually we can set them up like other a demo DAO in order for you to be able to get the events and deploy the Subgraph.
And even DAO.
A DAO that with fake events, so a DAO that with fake transactions, so we can then do the testing with the Subgraph.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely gonna need like a DAO for one component of the marketplace. In this case, the pre-sale, as you said.
I think that the market maker, you can already use the DAO that we are using for the commission for the tester, because people is doing buys and sells.
Oh, so we can define it on the, where is it? On the here on the
On our side, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be a good way to debug and test the subgraph. Yeah, we have to do it part by part, because it's gonna be a lot easier.
Okay. We have the first hatch that contributed a lot of people, and it was refunded. And the new DAO, it have just one contribution for the hatch, and later it have a lot of buys and sells in the bonding curve. So maybe with those two we can do two good subgraphs.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. We just need the address and we can set it up. So the subgraph start listening.
I will say is that you can replicate at the beginning the app data that the background script is doing. So you don't have to rethink everything. You can just replicate the JavaScript or the data that object is providing. Maybe it's a little more difficult because you are working with entities, not just with JavaScript objects, and you want to make a good.
Yeah, I was gonna to point it out later that we need to check out the app state of the that the script.js built, so we can build our schema. We need to use it as a guide or something.
Okay.
Because yeah, it's the only way. But because basically it's gonna be the same, or more or less the app state. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So we can take a look to the handlers that we specified here. This is the file that has all the handlers of our app. So basically, a handler is a function that we export and receives an event. In this case, for example, the handler for the task created event search the entity and then save it. So this get task entity, that is a helper function, basically build the entity ID and then tries to load it. And if the entity isn't loaded, I mean, if it doesn't exist, then it creates it, and then return it. So this is the common process that every handler follows, more or less. Search the entity, do some updates on that entity, and then store it again. Let's see. As you can see, for example, the config entity it's pretty much the same, or the user entity. Okay, so once we have all our handler functions created, we need to set up these hooks. So aragon-connect provides you with a set of special hooks that you can use to listen to certain types of events from the Aragon OS framework. For example, this hook, this function is gonna be called when a new app is created. So, for example, when someone installed or Aragon app on a DAO, this will be called, and basically we check if the app ID resembles the Aragon PM ENS of our app, and if it is included, then we create the template for that app. For example, in the case of conviction voting, or Honeypot, I think they have here the Dandelion and the conviction voting repositories. So when a new app ID it's received, if it's included on this whitelist of app IDs, then we create a template. So that's why we defined our handlers and contract on the templates section, so we can set a new listeners for the new contract that has been deployed. we have other Aragon hooks that we can use. For example, this hook is called when an app template is created. So when we create a new template here, this hook is gonna be called, and then, for example, in this app we call the load app config function. That basically what it do is search the new round robin contract and set the configuration variables. And in this example is the number of tasks that we can allocate. So here we probably gonna need to set up the market maker config data or the presale config data. Like, for example, I don't know, the goal, the vesting cliff period, the exchange rate, all of those things. So yeah, there are other hooks that Aragon-connect provides you. That, for example, on organization template created, it's the same, but for an organization template or token.
When I was reading React docs, they said it was a good practice to start all the hooks with use, but I don't see this code. I guess.
Yeah, the Aragon-connect call this function hooks. I'm not sure why. The documentation, at least, they say these are hooks. So, but they are event handlers functions basically. So maybe we should start calling it event handlers instead. But
okay.
They call it Aragon hooks. I don't know what. So basically that will be all when setting up our subgraph. The most difficult, not difficult, but because the subgraph uses a subset of the TypeScript language, that is the assembly script, I think it's called, that is more restricted and more more strict when declaring the variable types and all that. It could be a bit tricky to deploy the first time because it's gonna complain a lot, the compiler, but the transpiler, about our code. For example, some AJS features are not supported, or some types that TypeScript allows, assembly script it doesn't support it neither. So deploying the subgraphs the first time is gonna be a bit tricky because we need to basically solve all those compiler errors. So, but once we have all this that I explained, we just need to, if I remember correctly, I think, aragon-connect. Yeah, we just need to basically execute the command that corresponds to the network where we want to deploy our subgraph. In our case, will be deploy site. We need first need to set up the graph token. Let me explain that. So the graph has a subgraphs explorer that you probably have seen before. Let me show that. Okay. So we need to create a new subgraph on the Explorer, and then we can deploy the subgraph we just developed. So for example, here I have some, here this will be the subgraph for the Aragon round robin app that we just saw. Well, I don't know how it's loading. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we need to create a new entry here so we can deploy our subgraph. This will be the subgraph profile, and then we can execute the commands. So before executing the deploying command, we need to set the access token, so the graph can publish our subgraph here. But once we have that and deploy it, we can start querying. We can start creating requests to query the subgraph. So they offer you a playground here, so you can do some quick Graphql queries. In this example, you can see it returns some data. And then you have this log section here where which you can use to basically debug the subgraph. And here, and that will be all. So once we have the subgraph created, we need to create the connector. That is the. Let me change screens again. Okay. So this connector will be located on the main source file. So the connector, the main file that is gonna to export our connector is this one, this connect.ts. It basically uses a aragon-connect default function to create our connector. Basically here it receives some data like the Aragon app object with the Aragon with the address or the for example permissions or all that. Some config data that we need that for example has the subgraph URL, all the stuff. And this basically what return is a round robin, in this case round robin object that is our main object connector. So okay, so the connector component has basically two important parts. The models where we basically create and define our classes that is going to receive the information that we query for the endpoint. So when we make a request to the Graphql endpoint, that returns the entity. So we need to map that entity to JavaScript objects that we can use on the client side. So basically in models, it's the folder where we declare and specify all that. For example, we have one file for the config entity, one for the task, another one for the user, and we have one file for the, in this case, the app model. So this is the class that we create an object and return on the function that I explained earlier, this create app connector. So basically the round robin class has the address for our organization, for app organization, and our round robin connector. So when we receive this object, an instance of this class on the client, we can use the connector to make the queries for our endpoint. So for example, we have here the user function that basically what it does is calls the connector user calls this function that basically what it does is gets the entity ID and then perform a query to the GraphQL endpoint. So basically what we're doing here is asking for the user with this ID. So once we got that user, we parse the result data, which basically what it does is what I just explained, that creates a new user model. And this is what we're gonna receive on the client. So we're gonna have the models folder, and then the graph folder that basically is where the graph connector is gonna be, and all the helper functions that we need. So we have a subfolder where we have all the parsers that are these helper functions. We're gonna have it on the parser folders, and then we're gonna have another file with our queries, with all the queries that we wanna use on our app. For example, we have the query to search for the config data for that of our app, or for example the user query that we just saw, or other things. So basically that will be the main structure. Another things that the GraphQL uses that the graph also integrates is the subscription queries. Well, it's not queries, but it's basically like a WebSocket. It allows you to basically query the subgraph periodically, every interval of time. So that way, our client can update the front end properly according to the new events that the subgraph, the new entities that the subgraph creates are updates. So for every for every query that we define, for example, user, we can define a subscription function, so we can listen to that entity all the time. In this case, for example, it's called on user, and it's basically the same logic that on the user, but we perform a subscribe query instead of a query. So once these subscriptions basically updates, executes this callback that we pass and provides with the updated information. So when we call this from the front end app, we provide a callback that specifies what we want to do with that data. For example, with the user, we want to update the component state, the React component state every time we receive a new, every time callback is executed. So I don't know if everything is clear until now, or you guys have
Yeah,
doubt.
I need to rewatch the video. Like I'm recording this, so I need to watch it again a few times to see. But it looks clear.
Okay.
I have to jump off the call because I have another call. But before I jump off, I will know. Do we have clear which are the next steps for the project in the graph? I guess that I can search for the addresses of the two DAOs that we have. In one case, a pre-sale that has been refunded, and in the other case, the current DAO that we are using right now. And with those, we are okay to continue.
Yes, if I understand correctly, the next steps will be basically we build like a first version of the subgraph, but only listening to the pre-sale or hatch contract that got refunded. And we create a first version of the schema with the pre-sale data, the Graphql schema, and then we can develop the second part that will be with the current DAO, right? The market maker that we have.
I would prefer to have two graphs because I guess that it has a lot of sense to have because the sale can be, well, they usually go together, but they are very different things.
Okay.
So probably it's better to have two graphs, even if they are in the same repo. Maybe we can add them in the marketplace repo actually.
I mean other projects that I have seen, they always use only one subgraph, and then, but maybe for simplicity we can create two. For example, the honeypot that uses Dandelion and Conviction, it only has one subgraph. It only uses it. But
we can discuss it, yeah. Maybe it
But-
perhaps.
for the moment, let's do it that way to keep moving.
Okay. That will not be that hard, right?
No, the pre-sale contract and the market maker, it's not gonna be that difficult, I think.
Okay, I have to jump off. Thank you so much, Paulo, for doing that.
I don't know if I explain it very well, but
Yeah, it's really. You have been doing the whole flow of the app. You seem like you know this very well.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to jump off. Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Bye, Sam.
Bye, Sam.
Tonga, so let's define the next steps so we can start working on something. I was thinking, because we're gonna have two subgraphs, I think it's better for the moment. You can start with the pre-sale one, the hatch.
Okay, that's seems
So
the easiest.
what you can do is basically, well, the documentation offers you like some guides, so how you can start working on your own connector and subgraph. You can check it out. but basically what you're gonna need to do is copy and paste Aragon Connect project. For example, you can copy paste the one I used, that is I used for this meeting. I think it's simpler than for example, the conviction voting or the honeypot.
Okay. Round robin, right?
Yeah, I'll pass you. I'll share with you the report.
Okay.
And you can start working on the. Let me show you something. So I was looking at the script.js of the marketplace app. This one. So as you can see here, there are basically three main contracts that marketplace app uses: the bounded token contract, the market maker, and the presale. So basically, you just need to take a look to which data is it's loading here. So it will be this. You just need to create an entity called config, where you can store all this data.
Okay.
The open date, period, all that, and then you can check out how is that data exported to the front end. I mean the app state. This will be a nice guide for our schema, because basically here it defines all the app state for our front end. So we're not gonna do it right now, but in the future. But it will be nice to look at this when we develop our marketplace scheme or general marketplace scheme. But yeah, basically just take a look to the pre-sales code of the script and create everything that you need on the Subgraph site.
Okay.
I will be doing the market maker app that the Sam told us, and let's see if maybe for the end of the next week we can have both Subgraph deployed.
Okay. Okay, hopefully.
If you have any questions, just ping me.
Yeah, I will probably message you very often, but yeah, that's good.
Great.
A good plan.
Awesome. So, do you have any doubts, or we can end this meeting here?
I will send you by message a few questions. I also want to be able to run the local node that I haven't been able to do yet. So
Yeah.
maybe I will send you questions about that first, and then continue with this.
Okay. So for the Aragon Connect subgraph, you don't need to set up anything. You just, you don't need to follow the quick start guide.
Okay. Yeah, I can do it. I still want to learn how to do that.
Yeah, of course.
But
just keep in mind that you don't need it for the Aragon Connect, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Awesome. So great.
Yeah.
I'll start working on this and keep you posted about
Yeah.
the subgraph I'm gonna be developing.
Awesome. Yeah, the explanation was really great. I'm just hoping the video was properly recorded, and
Yeah.
if it was, I will watch it maybe even 2 times because it was a lot. But
Yeah, I mean
really
it's
good.
it's not that it's a lot of files or a lot of work. I mean you have to set up for the connector, and but the idea is to do it part by part.
Yeah. So the first will be the making a little schema of the subgraph, right?
Yeah, you first do the on a sheet of paper. I don't know, design the schema for the hatch, and then you write the Graphql schema. Use the round robin schema as an example because you can take some variable types like big int or that I use to set it up.
Okay.
Once you have the GraphQL schema, you start with the handlers.
Yeah.
So you just take a look to the events that the hatch contract emits, and then start writing the template that I just explained.
Yeah,
the subgraph template.
That's the .yaml file, right?
Yeah, you need to edit the subgraph template, not the subgraph.yam, because that file is auto-generated.
Okay. Okay.
So aragon-connect uses the template to build the subgraph YAM that we saw on the quick start guide, you know.
Okay. Okay. I will realize when I watch the video again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's talk. Let's keep in touch, and yeah, maybe when we have the next meeting.
I'm gonna be available during the whole weekend, so don't hesitate to ping me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, see you. Maybe if we keep in touch, I don't know if we make the next meeting on Monday, but if
as we schedule,
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So
Okay.
Mondays we can discuss everything that we got about the subgraph.
Okay. Hopefully, I will have enough information to be able to move forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hello guys. Hi.
I don't know who's there. Hello.
I'm Thomas. I'm just in Discord and so I'm doing a pair programming session. So I thought I will join up. So I'm a developer of the Lab 10 collective, and we are also an XDAI node validator. And yeah, following up a little bit of your projects.
Nice.
Oh, awesome, man.
Nice.
Yeah, we're basically building a connector for the token engineering commons hatch.
Alright. So is it okay just to step in and watch your pair programming sessions, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
of
why
course.
they are open.
Yeah.
That's why we do it on this channel.
Yeah, cool. So actually I should do it also more often, because I'm also working as a solo dev more or less, even though so we don't have really an office, we are very distributed, and we don't do a lot of pair programming sessions, and I think it really helps.
Oh,
Nice. Which project are you from? I didn't hear very well.
Artis, it's a blockchain focused on climate change action and energy market. artist.echo.
Oh, see it.
And the other project I'm working on is DMD. Oh, I just noticed I got a visitor. Well, we will talk again. Yeah. Okay. See you next time.
Okay,
Ciao.
see you. Ciao.
Bye. Well, bye, Tonga.
Bye, Pablo. Take care. Thank you.